Welcome to the Intelligence Briefing Live, What's the Buzz, where leaders and hands-on experts share how they have turned hype into outcome. Today, we'll talk about getting funding for your AI projects. And who better to talk to about it than someone who's a master at doing just that? Scott Taylor. Hey, Scott, thanks for joining.
Andreas, good to see you. I'm here to help you turn your outcomes back into hype.
Oh, I like that.
Help people do.
That's awesome. Great spin on my tagline. So, hey, great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do? Maybe there's still folks in the audience that have not met you or don't.
I hope so. I hope I'm meeting some new folks out there. Hello, data gals, data kids, data guys, data queens, data kings, data jacks, data 10 of clubs, maybe if that works, data jokers, data aces. I'm Scott Taylor, data whisperer, here to be your data friend on the screen. I help people calm data down. That's what data whispering does. We all try and calm data down. We need good, solid, calm data to drive the kind of analytics work and AI work that we all want to do. I do that by now I just produce content in a variety of different ways, focused on the strategic importance of proper data management, which is a rather boring sounding topic. So I try to do this in the most entertaining way I can get away with. I used to write white papers, but now I do puppet shows, continue to do these kind of live broadcasts, videos, events. Anyway, we can get people paying attention to the importance of the value of data management, data governance, data stewardship, and more importantly, around how to tell that story to the business side, to those executive leadership stakeholders on the business side who really don't care about how you get the work done. They want to know why it's important. And so I focus on helping businesses, both enterprises and tech brands, because I work with a lot of data brands and software brands out there, help them put that data story together in an engaging, business-friendly manner.
Awesome. And I think that's such an important part, right? Even though you say, hey, it's data management and data governance, and if you look at AI or generative AI, it still comes back down to data. And do we have data? Do we have good data? Do we have clean data? So it's really fundamental. And I'm really excited to have you on the show today, because I know you've been active in that data and AI space for quite some time. And I've been following your content, so thank you for joining.
You bet. Thrilled to be here. Yes.
So, hey, folks in the audience, if you're just joining the stream, drop a comment in the chat where you're joining us from today. I'm curious how global our audience is again. And don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter, the AI Memo, under intelligence-briefing.com/newsletter, so you can stay up to date on how you can run AI projects in your business successfully. Scott, what do you say? Should we play a little game to kick things off?
Sure. I'm ready. This is the Jimmy Fallon part of the program. Yeah. Is there singing involved?
There's no singing involved for the benefit of the audience.
That's the good news and the bad news, but mostly good news, yes.
I'm not a good singer, so I take that on me for the benefit of the audience. But hey, I don't have my usual setup today, but the game I want to play with you is called In Your Own Words. And if you followed the show for a while, you know what's coming next. But I'll read a sentence to you, and I would love for you to answer it with the first thing that comes to mind and why, in your own words. And for those of you watching us live, also drop your answer in the chat. What do you think it is? So, Scott, are you ready for What's the Buzz?
I guess I'm ready here.
Okay.
I got my horn. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So, hey, if AI were a restaurant, what would it be? 60 seconds to make it a little more interesting. Go.
A sushi restaurant. It would be a sushi restaurant because you get these little tasty little nuggets, and you have a wide variety of things that you can get. Rolls, inside out, outside in, cones, sashimi. But the most important aspect is it's fresh. The fish is fresh. If your data is not of good quality, if your data isn't fresh, if it isn't dependable, it doesn't matter what it looks like on the plate, it's going to make people ill. So you can, right in line with my basic data philosophy, which you can boil down to 3 words: truth before meaning. You want to determine the truth in your data before you spend time deriving meaning out of it. You want to make sure that sushi fish, even though it's raw, is super fresh before you start to lay it out there in all those wonderful, miraculous, exciting configurations. So there's my, probably still have more time left, but there's my riff on.
Awesome.
If I were a restaurant, it would be a sushi restaurant. So
thank you so much. Wait to think on the spot. I have a feeling you've done this before. So
Chris Tab is on there, loves the sushi
yeah.
reference. Yes. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you.
Fantastic. And I'm taking a look at the chat as well, all the way from Kenya, Islamabad, Pakistan.
Oh, yeah. We have an excellent African contingent here. We got Kenya, we got South Africa, the whole continent is coming in.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us. But Scott, why don't we jump into the meat of the session and our questions?
The meat of the fish of the session, yes.
The fish of the session, yes, exactly. So look, I've been in technical roles for most of my career, and early on in my career journey, I remember thinking to myself, why do you need to tell a story? Like when you hear people say, oh, you need to tell a good story for people to understand what you want to do and to follow you. And I thought, isn't it obvious what we're doing and why we're doing it? So storytelling to me always seemed so fake at that time. But I also see a lot of people in technical roles asking similar questions. And I think that's now especially important as companies are chasing AI, generative AI, and so on. So my question to you would be, why do you need a story to begin with?
I saw your last episode where I think you said it was the most technical episode that you've had. I would suggest this is probably going to be the least technical episode you have. So you have both ends of the spectrum, back-to-back episodes. If you don't put things together in a story, then the people who you need support from are not going to understand you, are not going to realize why it's important. And you're not going to work always with the kind of technical practitioners that you might be out there. And Andreas, where you came from, right? Being very technical, highly specific, highly skilled in those really hard skills. Storytelling by its nature is one of those soft skills. And I think the soft skill category is probably ironically named because those aren't easy. Soft doesn't mean it's easy either. So they're pretty hard to figure out. But if you don't capture that narrative in a way that people can understand it, you're not going to move forward. And if you think about the power of storytelling, and I've been doing storytelling my entire career, probably my whole life. I think I've been doing storytelling since it was 2 words. It's a way to change people's minds. It's a way to have them imagine what the value you could bring could be. It's a way to grab them emotionally, logically, capture all their senses to have them see what you see. And if you focus just on how you do it, which is the technical side, and you don't explain why it's important, then you're going to fail in a business setting. And I would suggest that most people we're talking to are in some form of business enterprise setting where they need to show value. The company's got to make a profit. It needs to have a strategy. It needs to move forward. There's all kinds of issues in the company about what that brand is trying to accomplish. And storytelling actually is a shortcut. It's the easiest way to get into the minds of the leaders of your business.
That's I think especially important because at the end of the day, your projects depend on budget and getting that budget to do what you actually want to do and what you're passionate about. But at the same time, like you said, showing what is that value. So again, to those in the audience, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. You see Scott is super eager to answer, and I think he's looking at the chat.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat here. Yes, I'm not looking at my email. I'm looking at the chat. Some shout outs to some friends here. Hey, Fred, good to see you back online. We're missing you, Fred Laredo, the follower of the year again for the 2nd year in a row. Christine from Chicago calling in, and a couple of other new folks. So good to see people I know and meet some new ones as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this: if we talk about storytelling and that it's so very important and so critical to unlock that funding so you can do what you want to do and move the business forward, obviously not everybody is at the level that you're at the master level, right? So what are some of the common issues that you see people make when they do tell a story? What's missing? Where do they start off wrong? And how can you do it better?
A lot of times they start with how they're going to do it. People don't care about how until they understand the why. Don't start with your data model. A lot of times, they, especially from the practitioner, technician perspective, I hear them talk about the story they tell is how they got to where they are. So we tried this, then we tried that, then we did it this way, then we figured it out that way. And that's your wonderful process journey. But most people don't care about that. Not when you start. They might ask you later, but you start with the headlines. What's the most important message that these folks want to hear? The type of story, and they also don't structure it in a way that will drive action. So when you think about storytelling, business storytelling, the purpose of it is to drive an action, not just explain some kind of parable or leave people with a nice thought-provoking idea or elaborate on an experience. Those things are nice, but the kind of, when you're trying to get the money, whether it's for your AI project, your data management project, or anything, when you're trying to secure funding, you need to keep in mind why whatever you're doing is going to enable the strategic intentions of your enterprise. So think about that end in mind. Don't start with how it's going to get done. Don't start with how you got to today. Start with some kind. In a lot of cases, you want to start with the end. It's not a suspense novel, the story you're telling. It's journalistic. It's sales oriented. And when I say journalistic, who, what, why, where, how, think about that in the beginning, those kind of lead sentence of a typical news article starts with some sort of headline. And if you studied journalism at all, which I did certainly, and, helped me in my writing, they have this idea where you cut from the bottom. So the least important things are at the end. So you can kind of like shape that article in a way that you get the most important stuff at the top. I'm giving you a smattering and a fairly random array of types of ideas. But if we get back to the essence of it, start with why. That's not my phrase. We all know that from 𝗬𝗏, but know that those folks there are going to want to know why this is important to the business.
That brings back memories. I remember a couple of years ago, we had a meeting with some of our senior technical executives and leaders, and I brought some of our more junior data scientists and senior data scientists along, and we prepared this presentation, and we're doing exactly what you said. Here's the data, here's the process, here's how we did it. We never got to what the benefit is because we ran out of time and a little bit out of patience as well. So
I'll bet your audience the only why question they were asking is, why am I in this meeting?
Yes, exactly. Tell me, get to the point. Tell me what you actually want to tell me, what I want to hear, what I need to hear. So sounds very familiar. But maybe, I should have had that conversation with you years ago.
It's there.
So
it's the basic principles. Is, there's exposition. If you think about the classic storytelling techniques, if you studied Shakespeare at all, which I did as well, he's got, every play has the same kind of format. You start with this exposition. Who are the characters? What's the context? Why is, what's happening? Drive to this climax. But you want to end with some form of call to action, a pitch, a sales pitch, which is what I would call this, with all of the respect and positive nature of what sales can do, because I come from a sales background, sales marketing strategy, but fourth generation sales by nature. It focuses on benefits. It focuses on identifying the problem that exists and why what you are presenting or talking about will help solve that problem, which is different than, here's a lot of things we have. It's the difference. If you want to study anything real quickly, take a look at, I'm sure it's all over the internet, the difference between a feature and a benefit. A feature is what it is. A benefit is why it's important and what you get out of it. And people want to understand benefits first.
I think that's another important point that you're making. And maybe if we look at the chat, I see Mukta has 2 questions there. Maybe we can take them and combine them.
Where are they here? I don't know which feed I have. But does the storytelling need to be different? Oh, I've got, what is the instance you remember when you had to work multiple iterations, or rather more challenging one? What structure do you usually follow? Those are great. You know, you want me to jump on those? So, when I was doing pitches formally, we always start with the situation overview. What's happening now? What are the issues that are happening? What is it your company's facing? What's the current stated strategy or vision? And then from that comes the needs and opportunities. We want to expand our distribution into multiple markets. We want to reduce customer churn. We want to automate our quote to cash process. Name a business problem, challenge, whatever, but identify that first. Is this what you want? Isn't this where you want to go? Yes. Let me show you what comes out of that in terms of the needs you have. If you want to do this, then you probably need this ABC. What we're working on will provide this ABC in a way that will help you meet those particular challenges, or answer that opportunity, or benefit from these types of capabilities. Obviously, I'm free associating here in a rather generic fashion, but it does have and then you end with closing it. Okay, right? This is it. This is what we want to do. This is how we want to move forward. The basic marketing structures goes way back. Sales structure. I have a little bit about it in my book, Telling Your Data Story, which I'll show you in a minute. But it has these notions of attention, interest, desire, and action or close. You want to grab somebody's attention. You want to make sure you develop their interest. You want to nurture the desire they have in whatever you're talking about. And then you want to drive that towards some formal closure, call to action. And it goes in that order. It always goes in that order. Nobody says yes to something that they're not even paying attention to. Nobody wants something that they're not interested in. So attention, interest, desire, close, attention, interest, desire, action. This is not my structure. This is classic, Iliad and Odyssey type of sales and marketing stuff, that fundamental, that foundational. But that is the process you want to take, and you want to make sure you have all of them. It just is like a physical reality. It will not happen unless you go through all 4 of those different steps.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm also wondering, building on that, what are some tips and tricks, maybe some words of wisdom for our audience, how they can tell an even better story? And I really like what Joanna had asked here in the chat is, does the storytelling need to be different for AI than for any other business initiatives? And I think that's a great one to ask, because I also see that there are different aspects in the technology itself, in what it is able to do. But I'm curious what your perspective is. Would you say it's different or not?
Yeah, we can't. Before, somebody just said, can you please repeat those 4 steps? Attention, interest, desire, close, or attention, interest, desire, action. It's called the IEA. I can't even pronounce my own acronym. But anyway, you look that up. It's like a classic from the early 1900s. I should probably have better references in my head, but it is in my book. I do write about it. Telling Your Data Storytelling for Data Management. One tip I will give you is a blast right in the book. It is 99% buzzword free. You want to keep it at that. You want to talk in a very business friendly language. Also available in French, where it's 99% 𝗬𝗦 à la mode, which of course means no words with ice cream. Where were we? What are the tips?
Yeah.
One thing you can do is practice. Learn some techniques. Learn how to speak in front of people. Me, I over rotate. Obviously, I'm very focused and have a lot of experience, talent, energy, ideas around the presentational aspect of it. That's just my very nature. I tell people I have a fear of not public speaking. There's not a lot of folks who brag like that, but learn some techniques. That's one thing. Ways to tell a story, stand up in front of people you don't know, talk to your dog, explain it to your partner, join a Toastmasters group or something that just gets you on your feet and comfortable in front of folks that in some cases have no idea what you're talking about, have never met you, don't know who you are, and are wondering why they're even in the room. Think about that as kind of an audience. Get good at that. The more fluent, you cannot get enough practice in no matter what. Is there any athlete out there who doesn't always hit the ball around, throw the ball around, warm up, all those kinds of things? For some reason, we think in business, we can just like turn a switch and just walk in the room and say, okay, I'm going to do that. I practice all the time. I rehearse all the time. I'm working on my craft constantly because as a professional communicator, you want to be able to nail it. I don't have a choice. When somebody pays me to do a speaking gig, I don't get to use that as practice. I've got to deliver. I've got to change the energy in the room. I got to be inspirational. I got to bring the passion, the humor, the drama, whatever it is I'm trying to nail. I've got to make sure that that works, like a musician, like somebody in sports, like anybody who's got those kind of talents. The other thing, so practice, the other thing I would say is understand the nature of a story, because just because you know the techniques doesn't automatically make the story any good. I was at the CDI-OIQ conference last week. A graduate student came up to me. It was a lovely moment. He said that, he followed me, asked me sort of like, what's the one tip? And I'd say, learn how to tell a story. And he said, so techniques, I should do presentation skills. I said, that's all good. Yes, important, but also get a sense of a difference between a good story and a bad story. Can't explain all that right now, but there is a difference. And the example I actually use with him and I've used with others is you can go to a movie, it can have tremendous special effects. It can have this top-notch director, it can have all these wonderful stars. The movie can still suck. And the reason it'll suck is because the story sucks.
Well, they're going to suck for a few more months, right? Given what's happening in Hollywood at the moment and the break.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and that's telling a story. So it's it's age old. It's the way humans communicate, and it's such a powerful capability that even a small amount of it that you work on is going to go a long way. And especially in our space, which is why I love being in the data space, being a non-practitioner, being a non, I'm not a data scientist. It's not a very well-kept secret because I shout about it all the time. Besides being a data whisperer, I don't really work with data. I've always been on the supplier side. I've never worked at an enterprise, but I get the pain. I understand what people are going through. I can connect with them emotionally, and I can translate those needs and opportunities into something that feels like you should take action upon it in a business sense. That's the niche I live in. I love it. I thrive in it. I think I play my position really well, but I play my position. I stick to my position. But I learned early on that a disproportionate amount of these techniques about understanding whether there's a story there, about driving towards action, can give you a disproportionate amount of effectiveness in this business setting.
Awesome. Now, let me ask you our final question. We've heard quite a bit about how and when to apply storytelling, but I'm wondering if you also have some examples when not to do it. When should you not apply storytelling?
When it's time to sort of shift from the why to the how. When you really got to get it done, that's when the practitioners take over and speak to their peers. And I have huge respect for people who actually do the work that I love to talk about. It's sold, it's done. You want to move on finishing it, on getting it off the ground, whatever that aspect is. My daddy taught me a whole bunch of things about selling. Again, I worked for him. I was fortunate. He was an awesome world-class storyteller. And he taught me something really early on. It was like and I have this in my book, when you get the yes, shut up. Don't keep talking. Let's say you're in this board meeting and you have this wonderful story and you've gotten halfway through it and people are energized and realize this is something they definitely want to do. And they go, okay, what do we do next? The next thing you do isn't, oh, well, I had another half of the story. I had 12 more slides I wanted to go through and just take you through this. No, shift to that how, shift to execution, shift to the plan. There may be a story and a narrative in that, but that's not the time to start to paint this wonderful imagey, picture. It's time to shift to the practical reality of feet on the ground. There's kind of head in the clouds and there's feet on the ground. There's a balance there, and everything there's a balance. But I would say, and it's a great question, that's not the time to start to wax poetic about the benefits. It's time to get into, we need to execute on these features.
Right. So also being nimble and being able to pivot quickly or move on to the next phase is what I'm hearing is key.
Yeah. I had an experience where I was brought in. I worked at Dun & Bradstreet, worked at Nielsen. They used to love to bring me in. Sales folks used to love to bring me in for that kind of big account command performance session because I could really whip people up and get them inspired. I did it with a session for a client. Our client saw me at an event. I forget what it was, but then they said, okay, we want to bring you in and we want you to talk to the technical folks. And I was paired with a solution architect who really understood for me, it's always important to be anchored by the reality of the technical reality. And I was a little hesitant. I was like, you really want me to go through all this? And they said, oh yeah, the client loved it. And please take them through your show. And I started talking, and I really wasn't getting, it was on a webinar. I really wasn't getting a whole lot of engagement. And I saw a couple notes like, when are we getting to the data model? And people were pinging. And then suddenly I got sort of this side note that said, okay, we're going to shift over. And I had this kind of instinct, but it wasn't really fully formed in my gut, but I knew something was awry. And they sort of apologetically said, this is all nice, but we got to get to the execution. And so I learned the hard lesson, even though I had a sense that I might be taught it that day, that the stuff I do, for example, as good and as effective it can be, has a place. And knowing that place sometimes is as important as being able to deliver that message.
Yeah, that's awesome. So hey, we're getting close to the end of the show, and I was wondering if you can
summarize. Already? This is it? We're done already?
Well, time flies when you're having fun. So, but I was wondering if you can summarize the 3 key takeaways for our audience today before we wrap it up.
Learn how to tell a story. Focus on the why. And here I'll channel my inner Vin because I saw him speak. Buy my book if you want a lot more tips there. Buy my book, Telling Your Data Story, Data Storytelling for Data Management. Available at Technics Publication. It's filled with tips and tricks on how to put this story together. It's written from the how to sell this in perspective. So I feel like I really captured kind of the essence of a lot of stuff I talk about. It's the way I would sell stuff in. And so there's a lot of stuff in there. And if you ping me on LinkedIn, follow me, take a look at my stuff. I'm all over LinkedIn and YouTube with a lot of these kinds of different ways to tell these data stories. And I love doing this. So hopefully that was helpful. And thank you for having me today. This was fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your expertise with us, and for those of you in the audience for learning with us. So, Scott, thank you. All right. See you next time for another round of the Intelligence Briefing Live. What's the buzz? Bye-bye.